Hey Dude,
The 90s Called
with Christine Taylor and David Lascher.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Hey Dude, the 90s Called podcast. I'm David.
Hi, David. I'm Christine.
What's up, Christine?
Nice to see you.
You too.
A little bit of a different background. You're definitely not home.
Yes. I was alerted this morning that there was an event being thrown at my house, so I am borrowing my friend's office. And yeah, he's like, there's photos of my kids behind you. I got to put a sheet over it. It looks like I'm being held hostage somewhere.
I feel like we just do what we need to do with the podcast. Nobody's going to see it until the YouTube episode comes on. So, right?
Well, yeah, but
I guess for our social media, yeah, but it's a little box.
I thought Jax and Chelsea were great last week, and I loved having you as the moderator because I can't interview my own daughter really, but you were great.
It was so much fun, and I have to say, I met Chelsea a few times, and I've it's so interesting because I met Casey, but just with your family, even in the few times that I've met your kids, I just feel like they're sort of by default my family too. Like I just feel like you guys are sort of like second family. And with Jill too, like we've only really we text, and I remember like even when we were sort of launching the podcast, Jill and I were the ones choosing all the photos because you just said I'm not choosing, you and Jill deal with it. But I just feel like I know you guys. Obviously I know you, but I just feel like I know your family so well. And I haven't met Hannah, but I just feel like I know everybody.
Oh, you never met Hannah?
No.
Oh, wow. That's
no,
weird.
She was at college when I visited you in LA.
Well, actually, she's working in New York all summer.
Oh, so maybe we'll meet when you come in.
When I come to visit, yeah.
That would be so great. But no, first of all, I just loved Jax. I loved hearing her story. She's we talked about it after we had but she's so humble. It was great. It felt like a family affair for you. And I love it. Speaking of family affairs.
Exactly. It's a trend.
It's a perfect segue. Some back-to-back family. Our first repeat guest, our first part 2 guest, because we say it a lot when we talk to people. We're like, we have to have you back. We have to have you back. And,
I know. But I got to say, there's so much to talk to Ben Stiller about that we could do part 2, 3, 4, 5.
I know. I know.
This is going to be good.
By the way, he has been chomping at the bit to get back on this. He's our number one fan. He is really, truly listens every week and has just been such a supporter. So why don't we let my husband, our biggest fan, Ben Stiller, in? Ben,
yeah.
Hi.
Hi, honey.
Hi, honey. We're not in the same state right now. So
what?
No, I feel like we all are in very different environments right now. First of all, the Airbnb you're staying at looks perfect.
Right?
Wow.
Look, it's kind of, yes, I know. I'm in Ashtabula, Ohio right now with Quinn, our son, who is involved with an organization that is based out of here. And it's called Kids for Positive Change, if anyone wants to check it out on Instagram. And it's this organization where that sort of where kids are at the forefront of helping make change in the environment, with the planet, with people, with animals. And they're recording a PBS series, season 3, that Quinn is helping. Quinn started this in freshman year of high school through one of his classes at school. And he's been working with Camille and the team here for the last few years. And now Quinn is 18 and he's kind of moving into the adult part of it. So he's helping direct a little bit today. He was very excited.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Very cool.
Anyway, so Ashtabula, Ohio, and this Airbnb is delightful. It's very Nancy Meyers, right? It's very
all the tones, the cream, the laser, the cream tones,
yes.
And
I put some green on to coordinate. Now, David, do you want to explain where you are? Because I don't understand it.
Yeah, I'm being held hostage right now. So if you can, I'm just trying to give you signals to help me. But No, my wife is throwing an event at our house, so I'm in my friend's office. He wanted to cover his family's photos, so
Right.
But let me say
So
congratulations.
that's not a wet towel hanging behind you. That's not a bathroom. You're in an actual
It's
room. We'll clear that up because
your friend is obviously in the witness protection program. Doesn't want any clues.
Yeah. So anyway, and Ben, I know you're in New York City.
Yeah.
Can I just congratulate you both on the two graduations that you guys went through? I mean, that's really, really milestones. Amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean,
2 in 1 week. Yeah, 2 in a week.
Right, college and high school.
I feel like we didn't have anything to do with it, really. Like, don't you feel like, Christine? I mean, you did, Christine. I feel like you.
I feel like I graduated high school, not college, but high school. I definitely was, I was like a co-pilot, a cheerleader, the person that everything got bounced off of. So I did sort of eat, sleep, and breathe. And also I had a lot of involvement as a parent at the school too. So I have graduated. Yeah. It's also a school that Quinn's graduation, Ben went to the same high school. So we now have 3 alums at the same school, the Calhoun School.
And Christine's on the board too. So she took a very active role. And I'd have to say, like, I think with Ella's our elder daughter, she's 22, and she went to that high school. I feel like I was helping out with her a little bit more on projects. You were like much more involved with Quinn as sort of a,
project manager. Yes. David also always on.
We're not helicopter parents at all.
No. David, you were the one who said your essay writing and because to me, by the way, senior year, when they have so much else going on, I think it takes a village to help the kids get through and navigate it all. And it did. And there were certain things that I called you, Ben, we made you do podcasts with Quinn. We made it, you call in the troops, you call in what's necessary.
Ella, I don't know if I'm like giving something away, but at one point, Ella, when she was, I think, a junior, she had a paper on like the history of Broadway musicals. And I got enlisted to be sort of a research assistant on it.
See?
And ended up, writing out some
thoughts.
Wait.
Which musicals did you guys write about?
No, you had to write the history.
She wrote about sort of like, basically the golden age of Broadway musicals from the 50s. Yeah, 40s into the 50s, and then how it transitioned into like the rock operas and like Jesus Christ Superstar and Hair and that era in the 60s. And it was actually really fun.
Yeah, I would think you would enjoy that project.
Yeah, like I learned that they wrote the entire score and libretto to Hair in like 2.5 weeks in like some basement apartment or something in the Village. Like literally the whole thing was written in like 2.5 weeks, by Jerome Ragney and James Rado, I believe, who was his partner. This classic score, and what a classic show, but interesting.
Yeah. See, that's the gift that we get to get. We're giving back to our kids, but look what we're getting back.
And that's the beauty of your kids are interested in the same similar things that you're interested in, right? Like if you wanted to help them with an AP calculus exam, how would that go?
Ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna happen. Not in our household.
You didn't get the math, Gene. I think we've talked.
No, but I think we all helped build like a cell for Ella. We all it was literally like 3 of us on the floor with clay trying to help build a cell
like a
at one point.
And electrons. Yes, I remember that, made out of the
Crayola soft clay. But as interesting as this conversation is to our listeners about our kids' school,
well, it's a good segue, David. Because honestly, I'd love to talk to Ben about his legendary parents. Were they helping you with school projects? Because they must have been very busy and hustling in the entertainment business. And what was it like to grow up in a showbiz household?
Well, it was a different time, Dave. It was like the 70s. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. I graduated high school back in 83. So like that time, being a kid in New York was its own thing. I think just in general, the amount of parental involvement in kids' lives was not as, we were just weren't self-aware.
Totally.
Right?
Yes, our parents too. Right, David?
Yeah, my parents never helped me with anything.
No, same.
Yeah. I mean, my parents were like out doing like playing nightclubs and stuff. And Amy and I were at home, hanging out with Hazel, who was our nanny housekeeper who became like a second mother to us. But, it was like, latchkey kids in the way that was just what it was. You know what I mean? That was just the norm. My parents were out there having to make a living, in show business. They weren't, they were working all the time because it was they always, they did a live act, Stiller and Mira, they had a comedy team, and then did a lot of, television shows and guest appearances and game shows and variety shows, and then live performing and Broadway plays. And eventually my dad, they both did television. My dad got known for Seinfeld and King of Queens, but, it was like day to day, they were just always working, and you just figured it out as kids. It was great. I mean, I loved growing up in New York in the 70s.
Yeah. And everyone else's parents were working too. But did you notice that your family business was different than your friends? I mean, it's a very unique thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I'm thinking about it a lot because I've been working on a documentary about my parents, and
oh, no way.
Yeah. And there's so much. It's what's exciting about it for me is that I realize I have so much material, like footage of my parents that most people don't have. I have them. My dad tape recorded so many conversations, weirdly, just secretly tape recorded stuff. I think it was because he was like just fascinated with capturing like my sister and I as kids. And I think the creative process with my mother, they would write these sketches together. He would always be taping so that he could sort of like, capture when something happened that was funny that he thought they could use. And so I have all these audio recordings and, of course, talk shows that they did, and these appearances that were in the talk shows in the 70s. People really talked about real stuff. They talked about, if you go back and watch any of these, like the Dick Cavett show or, David Susskind, or there's people like, I think it's Michael Parkinson. It was the British interviewer. I might be getting his first name wrong, but he did all these interviews in the 70s with like people like Richard Burton and, the Beatles and people like that. And they talk about real stuff. They're not like kind of like the fun, like tell a funny anecdote, to the audience and make them laugh.
Right. The pre-interview few stories.
Yeah. So I actually have like all this really interesting stuff with my parents talking about their relationship and the strain that, it put on being working together, traveling, put on their relationship. They talk about this stuff for real. And so that's, we were aware, I guess, that I don't know, like when you're a kid, you don't think about it as much that, I'm different than other kids because it's your reality. That's all you have. But it wasn't, it wasn't sort of like a thing where it's like, oh, we're special or we have like these privileges that other kids. It was very rooted in like a day-to-day New York existence.
What I also love too is that Ann and Jerry were getting jobs in LA, and those would be trips and adventures to LA, but they really made the decision to not move to LA. They always wanted to stay in New York. And you said you loved going and taking the trips to LA and going on the set of the Brady Bunch and the Love Boat and things, having access to those things. You loved going to their game show appearances, right? Like you really loved kind of being on the set.
I mean, for me, it was like everything. I loved it so much. I loved being just to see the behind the scenes of what they were doing. I realized pretty young that I loved directing and movie making and was fascinated by that and wanted to learn about that. But, thinking back, I mean, I literally got to go on the set of the Brady Bunch once. Like that's.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah. They were doing the Old West episode.
Oh my God. I know it so well.
I remember that.
well.
Yeah. Wasn't Jim Backus in that one?
Yeah. Exactly.
Doesn't he play like an old prospector or something?
Yes. And they had to they get locked in the jail cell and they had to put the belts together.
Yes. And to get the key. To get the key. Yeah.
The old school key. Yeah.
They were shooting on the back lot at Paramount Studios. I don't know why I was there with my parents, but
you're actually ruining it all for me because I really thought that was in the Grand Canyon.
I think they did go. I think they did.
They did. They did exteriors.
They shot some other stuff in the back lot.
Was that was the Grand Canyon episode?
Yeah, it was a three-parter. It was a three-parter, I believe.
Cindy.
Yes. Bobby, Cindy. Yes.
Well, Christine is like the Brady Bunch. Like she is the expert because she studied every single episode when she did the movies. So literally committed them all to memory, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Paramount Backlot. I want to hear
Paramount
this.
Backlot. There with my parents. Were watching, and Bobby Brady, Mike Lookinland, is sitting on top of. And this, honestly, this is seared in my memory. I haven't gone back to check the facts of like this actually happening, but I think there's a scene where he's sitting on top of the stagecoach, or he was at a moment when they were filming, and he waved to me, and and kind of acknowledging it, waved, and that was like a big moment for me.
You were probably his age, right?
I was probably his age, yeah. And I also remember being on the Partridge Family set and seeing Danny Bonaducci, and there was like a micro. This is another memory I have, like just deep in my consciousness. There was like one of those like microphone covers, like a foam microphone cover that they put over the boom mic or something, and he put it on his head and he like did a little did a little dance. Then just continuing my stroll down memory lane, The Courtship of Eddie's Father, going way back, which is a show that a lot of your viewers might not even, or listeners might not remember. This was like early 70s, which was Bill Bixby, who ended up playing the Hulk on the TV show. Mm-hmm. And Brandon Cruz was his son. I was on the set of that because my parents did that show. And there was an experience I had with Brandon Cruz, which I've talked about before, and we've actually communicated about over the years, where I had a candy bar in my hand and he knocked the candy bar out of my hand. I don't know what was going on in the moment.
He got aggressive. Traumatizing.
Yeah, but who knows? I probably sparked it, and I don't remember what. Anyway, but I have amazing memories of going on sets, loved it, and going with my parents whenever they would go out and do nightclubs or go to see them in the theater. And it kind of just became, it was just sort of the fabric of our lives.
Right. It's in your DNA.
Yeah.
The footage that you have, and there's like you were talking about, I mean, the Ann and Jerry footage, but there's also so much footage of the family and of you and Amy. And is it because I know your dad ultimately gave you a Super 8 camera that you started directing with, but didn't your dad also play around with it? And that's because there's was that your camera that he would shoot with? Because the stuff that we have of you and Amy as little kids is incredible. It's like we don't have that of us, most family. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm old enough that I grew up in the Super 8 era. So, literally like it was changing over to video as I became a teenager. So I have all this amazing Super 8 footage that my dad shot. He shot on his own. He had a Fuji camera, and then we had like a Kodak camera, and then I started to get into it, but he was documenting us all the time with that stuff, which is a big part of the documentary too. And it's just great to have all that, have all those memories. But like, there's something about the film footage I find really kind of visceral and kind of, of another time. And the video stuff, is of another time too. But like, there's something about that Super 8 stuff that reminds me so much of the 70s. And so I'm really happy that I have all that stuff and that he did it. At the time, we used to make fun of my dad, complain like, "Why are you always taking pictures?" He was, and he had this instinct that he just wanted to capture this stuff.
Did Jerry ever direct? Did he ever direct?
No. He, maybe there was one time he might have directed a play or a reading, but he never directed any films or anything like that. And it's an interesting question. I don't know if he ever even had a desire to do that. He was such an actor. He was such a performer. I think my dad wanted to be a stand-up comedian doing like a single, that was his thing. And he always worked with my mom in this team. And my mom was just so brilliant as a comedian, but she didn't love it as much as my dad did. My dad loved the comedy. My mom would have been happy to just act in dramas or to write or to do her own thing. My dad, I think, lived off of the performing energy. That was really important to him.
But it was like a blue collar kind of upbringing. You weren't like, you didn't think I have superstar parents that are going to be legends.
Yeah,
while you were living.
We definitely, it wasn't, we were like we were doing well. My parents were doing well, but we weren't living in a house in Beverly Hills. We were living in an apartment on 84th Street. Like a 6.5 room apartment that then it was like very much like Upper West Side living, and pre social media, pre all of these sort of tools that can give people such a sort of like instantaneous sort of celebrity, or like being famous at that time was based on having to actually go out and find somebody to watch you doing your thing. You know what I mean? It was harder to get access to be seen. So,
and you had to actually leave the house and go fly to LA and show up.
Exactly. If you wanted to be, out in the world as an actor, you had to go and do, it wasn't like somebody was going to pick up a clip of you and then it's going to get posted. It was like, you got to go out and do this sitcom, and that sitcom will air in 3 months, or, do these game shows, which were really popular at the time, shows like $10,000 Pyramid, Hollywood Squares. There was a show called Tattletales that my parents did, where like it was like the Newlywed Show, which was like you'd ask like the newlyweds questions and see if they had the same answers. They did that with celebrities. It was called Tattletales, and so that was what they did. So they go back and forth. My mom never wanted to move to California. She hated Los Angeles. Never learned to drive, and so they were kind of dyed-in-the-wool New Yorkers, and that was our life.
And so, like, because now your children are growing up with two performers as parents. You guys seem to have like a very normal life. It seems like your parents kept you guys very grounded. It's just cool that that they probably taught you how to do it.
Yeah, I think we're all influenced by our parents, so much, just in ways that are intentional and unintentional, just the experience of having them, they're just such huge figures in your life, especially when you're young. It influences everything the rest of your life. I think, we were watching them kind of figure it out themselves in terms of being parents and being actors. And, that continues on. I see so many parallel situations with our kids, and, Christine and I, as we're kind of figuring out how to navigate our stuff and be there for them and, support them in what they want to do. And both of them are interested in acting. And, it's very interesting at this stage in life to kind of be looking at my kids and seeing how my parents looked at us and having a different perspective on what my parents were experiencing. Christine had a different experience because she was so, outside of all of that in Allentown. But my parents.
But I think that's probably, I like when I look at Christine and you, I feel like I see two parents that are, raising their kids before anything else. But you guys have done these amazing projects and you have these amazing careers, but that doesn't define you. And I feel like maybe that came from your parents, what the priorities.
Yeah, I think it's any family. You have a family, and those connections you have with your kids. If you, the one thing I would say is like being in this business and the way the work can like consume you, or take you away, because sometimes you do have to go on the road, and that, to be aware of that, to me is the most important thing. And I think that's for me, like over the years, I think it's evolved, and Christine and I both, like being able to really prioritize the time together as a family. And I think with my folks, it was just a different time. People were less aware of, quote unquote, how to parent, or, these sort of like this self-awareness in terms of like how we're nurturing our kids, which I think is really good and really important. And we've evolved in a way where we're really talking about all these things that affect us in growing up, in interpersonal relationships, that, this stuff is out there more. But in the time that I was growing up, that wasn't really, there was like the beginning of the self-help movement, the sort of, people who were looking towards like trying to find answers, consciousness raising, but it was much more, it sort of directed towards yourself. It wasn't about,
Like those,
you know,
the S type
Yes.
stuff.
yeah,
Yes,
like
exactly.
we all took S in my family, but you know, like that was about like, you know, self-realization. And I think now there's much more of an awareness of like, well, how do my actions affect, you know, my kids, and listening to your kids, all that. But it was, you know, I think, wasn't it called like the me generation? Was that the 70s? I don't know. But it's interesting. It was just like, it was less evolved, you know?
My
Yeah.
parents didn't know where I was until, you know, it got dark out.
No,
And my dad
Yes.
was a partner at a law firm. And I remember my first 10 years of my life, all he wanted to do was make partner.
Right.
And our whole lives were built around. And I didn't see him till 7 o'clock at night. And, you know, it was a different time.
Yeah, I was going to say that about Ann and Jerry also, is that they were such actors for hire that you went where the work went. It wasn't like they were, I mean, it really, you know, obviously they would set club dates, but it was really like looking at each job, and it was really, you know, that was their job. So I think it was so different. You couldn't pick and choose as much in that way. And I
couldn't
think
pick and choose. And they also worked together. So a lot of times they would get hired to work together.
Right.
Because in that period of time for them in like the early 70s through like maybe like 1980, that was mainly how they were, you know, being hired and cast. But yeah, I mean, we were on our own a lot more, and I was going out and, you know, doing stuff as a teenager that my kids never did. And, you know, that's fine, you know, because I
Different
think
world,
we were
different
getting
time.
into like a lot of crazy situations that were because you just had, you know, there was no phone, there was nobody keeping tabs on you. Your parents would check in, but my parents would go to LA and they'd go to do a Love Boat episode. And, you know, I remember the night that John Lennon was shot, you know, my parents were in LA, and our housekeeper Hazel was staying with us, and I was 15, and, you know, I found out this news, and I lived on 84th Street and he was on 72nd Street. And my friend Jonathan and I went down and, you know, spent the whole night there out in front of the Dakota. And
oh my
Hazel
gosh,
was so upset with me because she was like, you know, John Lennon was not as important to her as like she was responsible for
your
me.
livelihood.
And
your livelihood. Exactly.
And I like called her like she and, you know, I called her like, I think when we got back to Jonathan's house at like 2:00 in the morning or something. And I said, like, you know, John Lennon was shot, and she was just so upset with me. She didn't care about that. She was like, just, are you okay? You know.
You went to the shooting, to the murder.
Well, yeah, that was just a crazy night, but
yeah, it's a part of history.
Yeah.
But how cool! So cool that you saw your dad explode when you were an adult, right? I mean, Seinfeld and King of Queens. I'm sorry, I don't want to make this about Jerry Stiller, but your parents they're just so amazing. You saw your dad's hard work turn him into, you know, a legendary comedic sitcom actor
in his 70s. In his 70s, like he
cool.
Found the most success, which is one of those incredible stories of, to me, of perseverance and doing what you love. And it's just, you know,
when you watch the Seinfeld episodes, like, you know, the one where the Costanzas want to move to La Boca Vista, and the Seinfelds don't want them there.
Yeah,
and your dad is like, they don't want us, so we're going. Did he crack you up? Did you laugh at his work? Because you must.
I mean, my dad is just like such a naturally funny human being. You know, the funny part of it for us was we always thought it was funny because he really couldn't be further from Jerry's personality. Was that guy? He was not that guy.
Oh, really?
Not at all.
He wasn't allowed over the top.
No. Oh my
gosh,
was no.
Incredibly just kind of quiet and had all this stuff inside
gentle.
Him.
He was gentle.
He was gentle, spiritual.
He would do a lot of funny bits, but he was not in that sort of extroverted, you know.
That was a full-on character that he created.
Yeah, it was, you know, he had it inside of him. And it's one of the things I trying to get at in the documentary a little bit too, is just, I think, you know, he was raised by parents who didn't get along. Very poor during the Depression. They moved, I think, 13 times before he was like 8 or 9 years old when he was a kid, you know, Lower East Side, Brooklyn, all over the place. His dad was a bus driver, and his mom and dad fought a lot. He dealt with a lot of, you know, stuff when he was a kid. I think he kept it all inside, and he was just the most loving, supporting father. He wasn't the tough dad. I think his parents, he didn't get that from his parents. I think they loved him and he loved them, but there wasn't a support for him going out when he said, I want to be an actor. And he went the other way. He was really supportive of us. But inside he had this, I think, like a lot of like pent up rage and just like sort of experience underneath the surface that I feel came out in that character when he would do that. That was part of who, and it was like this creative way that he would release that. And I think it was one of the reasons why he was so funny, was because he had a very real thing inside of him.
And it was also, I remember Jerry Seinfeld telling us, you and I, that what was so brilliant about Jerry Stiller was because he came from the theater, and this was a sitcom. Jerry Stiller just wanted to rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. And that's not how they did it. You would do a couple of you'd run it a couple times, and all he wanted was to rehearse. So Jerry Seinfeld, I remember telling us, the brilliance was he didn't get as much rehearsal as he would have liked. And, when they throw line changes at you in front of an audience, sometimes that sort of the yell takes that he would do, Jerry Seinfeld said, was moments where he was like remembering the line and then like the hallelujah moment of screaming the line. And it was so good. They said it was just, that's why they didn't want him to rehearse so much, because that was the gold.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen this outtake of Jerry Stiller with Julie Louis-Dreyfus?
Oh my God,
where
it's the best.
He says to her, "You want a piece of me? You got it." And
Yeah.
she cannot keep it
cannot
together.
get through it.
Oh, yeah.
He does it the same way every time.
Yeah. No, he loved that process. And he was just, he was so committed to it. And he had trouble remembering the lines. But he also loved the back and forth with actors. And I think that's like, something that I got from him, just by osmosis. It was like just how much he appreciated actors. And I think that, the interchange, the energy between actors, I think is such a special thing. And he really loved that. And, he went on the stage a lot. Both my mom and he both performed in the theater a lot. And so much of that was being, sort of like, when you do a play, it becomes about this, back and forth with your scene partners, and you do it every night and you find different things. And that he just had a joy of that process.
Yeah, I want to just segue too, because,
please.
We could totally talk about Jerry and Ann, but what I also loved about you when we first...
Wait, can I just talk about how much I enjoy your podcast? Also, because I've been listening. I listen to every episode. It's kind of exciting to be on it again, because I feel like when I first was on it, I was like, I didn't know the podcast as much. And now being a fan of it, like to be on it, it's like exciting because you're like in the thing that you listen to all the time. And I think you guys, like, it's just been so much fun to watch you guys develop your rapport and the way that you guys, end up in these conversations with really interesting different people, that starts out talking about, the 90s and all that. But like, there's just so many great, wonderful stories that I've heard over the course of the podcast, and the people just like, there's so many like uplifting stories. And I love how you guys then after the interview talk about the interview.
Dude, that really,
I always feel like it's like you want to make sure like it's like they're having the conversation about you as if people weren't listening afterwards. If you listen to the podcast, and you always say nice things about the people afterwards, thankfully.
Well, not always, but I appreciate you saying that. And I listened to your first episode. I just listened to it, and you were
so did I. Yes,
such a. I mean, he talked about White Squall for like 20 minutes, and the Jeff Bridges episode, but.
Which was a great one.
Thank you for saying that. But yeah, no, like I feel like Christine is so disarming, right? And so sweet. So like the Corey Feldman interview went kind of awry.
The Corey Feldman interview was amazing. The way you guys navigated that, because I see where like he was coming from, which is like, okay, he obviously was like, I don't want to dwell on the past. And he was like, the defenses were up. But really, by the end of that interview, he was having a great time. You guys were having a great time.
Yes,
he was
totally
talking about all this stuff. And it was like, it was really, it ended up being a really good one.
And then we interviewed Gavin Rosdale the other day, and Christine and I spoke beforehand. I'm like, can we ask him about Gwen Stefani? Because I don't know how their breakup was or what went on, but I'm like, I can't talk to him without asking him about it. And Christine goes, I'm not asking him. You ask him.
I know all that because that's in the podcast. That's you guys talking about that at the beginning of the podcast.
We did.
Did you know you were being recorded when you said that?
That's right. We did talk about that on the air, David. We talked about that on the air. I remember that. I said, I'm not asking.
My point is if there's ever been a good cop, bad cop.
Right.
This is what it.
And by the way, the Gavin one was amazing too, because like he was so loose and fun and talking about, his writing process, talking about tennis, talking about, what it was like and that. And it just like, I feel like people really open up with you guys. And also, it's interesting because you have an interest in certain things. Christine has an interest in certain things, and they're different too, which is fun because then you kind of like, you want to pursue, one avenue, and then Christine's, asking about something else. And it kind of like, I don't know, just it all flows really well, I think.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And also, Ben, you're the one who pointed out the sound effect, the new sound effect.
Yeah.
David, have you heard it? Should we discuss the sound effect?
Now I've heard it, yes.
Okay, you've heard it because you hadn't heard it. And then I said, Ben pointed it out, then I heard it, and it felt a little funny, right? It felt a little
the sound effect showed up, I think, like on episode like 65 or something.
Rob Morrow, I think, right?
Like it was it's deep into your run. It's very recent, the sound effect show. And all of a sudden,
maybe it's before, yeah.
Yeah, like one episode, it's like, all right, let's bring him in. And then it was like, I was like, whoa,
trying to make it a little more colorful with the sound effects.
It was very like fantastical and kind of like funny. And I was like, that just feels different than anything else that's been on the show. And then the other day when you guys on the Gavin one,
yes, it was the Gavin.
Were talking about it.
And you told me, you said you hadn't heard it. But David, I brought it up to David. David said, I haven't heard it yet, but I'll listen. And then David, you really kind of like schooled me a little bit about, listen, these things, sound effects are a big thing in YouTube and in podcasts. And I was like, I got it. I know that. I just don't know if this is on theme or on brand. We had a whole conversation about it. By the way,
I think I'm all for sound effects in podcasts. I think it's it's cool because it's almost like a show where it tells you where you are. I just thought that the sound effect that you guys chose was a little bit kind of like almost like a spaceship or something, and like someone's coming in from outer space.
And
then you talked about it on the Gavin Rosdale one, and you're like, and David, you're like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have to check it out. Like, okay, let's bring on our guest, Gavin Rosdale. And then the same one came up right after. And the timing could not have been better. It was so amazing.
They didn't take your note, I guess.
We didn't lose it.
Hey, who cares what Ben Stiller thinks? Wait, can we get into some Ben Stiller work? Because I didn't want to repeat anything from before.
Yes,
but
I totally forget what I talked about last time, so please.
I just want to know, first of all, do you miss... your directing work is so incredible. And Escape from Dannemora and Severance are two of the most unique, original, intense things I've seen in a long time. But do you miss comedy? Do you miss why are your directing choices so different from, a lot of your early film stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, if I'm being really honest about it, I think it's a combination of things. I think I've always loved different kinds of storytelling that's not comedy. It's funny, like going through all this footage for the documentary. I have footage of myself, when I'm little with my parents talking about how I really don't like comedy. I don't want to do comedy.
It's so genius. Ellen does the best impression.
My daughter does a great impression.
He goes, I don't think I'd want to do comedy. I'd want to do something different, maybe action or. And it's like clearly you want to be so separate from your parents, right?
Right. Yeah. But the reality is it sounds ridiculous to say it, but I did kind of stumble my way into comedy and thinking that I really wanted to be a director of movies, but I also like performing, and then went with that and enjoyed it. But there's always been a desire for me just to make different kinds of movies. And I love movies. And so the freedom, after having a career where like mainly identified with comedy, I feel a certain freedom that to as a director to kind of, be able to just sort of like, go, no, you know what, I'm going to try this. And really for myself wanting to, Escape at Dannemora was the first time I'd really directed anything that I wasn't in, except for Cable Guy I had a little part in, but that wasn't a comedy and that I wasn't in. And there was so much freedom. I found so much freedom in that. But yeah, I really, because there's not when you do a comedy, it's hard because, you're saying this is funny and if people don't laugh, it's hard.
It's pass or fail.
And that's why I'd have to say the answer for me also is a little bit like, I feel a little bit of a like, hey, this is, I'm not going to say easier, but to dive back into doing a comedy, it's like, I want it to work. I want it to be, and I guess for myself, I put like a very high bar of trying to figure out what that is. And I guess it's almost like I've enjoyed doing this, but I think, to make another comedy would be great. I would love to do another comedy and kind of like dive in and sort of commit to that. But it's hard because, when it doesn't work, it can be tough. And I guess I started after a while to sort of, in a way, just want to have the freedom to do other things. And then I've done that and I've enjoyed it. So I'm not making any rules at all, but, I just acted in a movie for the first time in December and January. That was a little comedy with David Gordon Green and directing it. And it was really fun. I had a great time. And, so it was kind of like the opposite of Severance, which has, been a very long process and very specific and particular. And this was a lot looser and was really fun too. So I don't know. I love making movies. And I think the best serious stuff always has humor in it. We just watched Taxi Driver with Quinn the other night. And there's so like Albert Brooks is in Taxi Driver. He's so funny in Taxi Driver.
Oh, that's yes.
And even the Harvey Keitel scenes, like some of those scenes.
Keitel
and De Niro are so fun.
Good.
Like De Niro's always been funny. He's always funny, even in the serious stuff. Raging Bull. I mean, there's always moments. He's playing this awful character sometimes but there's a humanity and there's a humor to it that is part of reality. And I've always felt like that. So, the fun thing about doing things that aren't called comedies is that you can put a lot more comedy in them and not have to sort of like be saying it's a comedy.
Well, you do that with Severance. I mean, that's Severance to me.
Well, Severance to me, Severance is based on the workplace comedy genre, that The Office, I think, really sort of, it maybe started with like Mary Tyler Moore and then like evolved into The Office and, Parks and Rec. And that was what I loved about it when I first read the pilot was like, oh, this is like The Office or Parks and Rec, but like if it was like in a weird like Twilight Zone episode where nobody knows what they're doing or who they are.
That blows my mind. You read the pilot for Severance and you saw The Office.
100%. Oh my God. 100%. I was like, this has the style of this is what I love about The Office. And I probably ended up making it a lot less funny than The Office. But for me, there was like, that's why Adam Scott was the perfect guy for it, because I was like, Adam will understand. Adam has a desire to do more than he's done as a comedic actor. And I know he has that in him because I've seen him do the work, but he also gets this tone in a way that very few actors can,
Adam Scott, by the way, in Step Brothers is one of the funniest performances. When they're singing the Guns N' Roses song in the car.
The singing, the dinner table, his delivery. I remember that was a revelation when we watched that movie. And it was right before what you were starting to, make The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And you wanted Adam for that immediately.
Yes. Him playing him as Derek in Step Brothers is one of the most funny comedic performances ever. And the dinner table scene, having dinner with celebrity chef Bobby Flay and going fishing with celebrity chef Bobby Flay. And enough already with the stories.
With the stories.
So I became obsessed with him from that. And, and then just like, there's a rhythm and a thing that, he really understands. And he has such a unique sort of like personality in that way that I think is kind of iconic, and it's been so much fun working with him over the years on this show.
Yeah, I can't wait for season 2. When is it coming out?
Well, the first image just dropped.
Yeah, we just...
What? Really?
Well, Apple had like their sort of like their announcement of all their new products yesterday, and they had a reel of Apple TV Plus shows, and we were part of that. And we released an image from the show, and soon, in a few weeks, there'll be a release date announcement, which will then lead to
sprinkling
the
little
next piece of information
crumbs
to eventually the premiere of the second season of the show.
Wait, Ben, can we talk about how long it took you to film it? I know you had a bunch of obstacles and strike and all that.
Yeah,
I mean,
season 1 was COVID and the pandemic too. So
yeah,
that's
I'm still not finished editing the show. We're still working on it. We started shooting season 2 in October of 22. So it's been
almost
a long
2 years.
time. Yeah, and that's for 10 episodes. And we had the strike came we'd been shooting, I think, for 8 months when the strike hit. And then we had to like regroup and shoot for another 3 months after we regrouped after the strike. And
you shut down for 10 months?
We shut down for the length of the strike and then had to regroup and sort of kind of like get back up to speed and do some writing work. And that took a few months. And then we went back in and started shooting in January and shot from January to April. So it feels like we've done 3 seasons, because the first part of the second season was literally like a year and a half ago. Yeah, I think we did like 186 days of shooting on this season.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm happy that we've had the time to try to, make it the way we want to make it. But the first season we had COVID, which hit like about 5 or 6 weeks before we were supposed to start shooting. And then that delayed us like another 6 months shooting wise. So it's been like my full-time job really for, I think in August, it'll be 5 years, maybe. Crazy. So, yeah. But, it's fun when you have something that you really, like doing.
Yeah, that's some adversity.
I say that fun in quotes. Like we're lucky, so lucky, honestly, though, lucky to do what we love doing. It's just, when you're in it and it's sort of like, I've learned on the series because I never really produced a series except for with Judd Apatow back in the day when we did, my sketch show that Judd was really producing more than I was. But, to do it like a series with, now we'll have done like 19 episodes. It's, every episode has to be at the level.
It has to, yeah.
And every episode has to be good if you want the finale to pay off. You want the audience to really, be as engaged, and the audience is expecting it,
So as a producer, who's writing the show?
You're asking the $1 million questions here.
Because as a producer, you're overseeing everything.
Yes, we have a small writing group. Dan Erickson created the show. He's a genius, and it's the first thing he ever had produced. He sent his script into our company as a spec like 6 or 7 years ago, and
no way.
And that's when I read it. I was like, this is like what I said. It's like this just really unique tone to it. And
how does a spec script come across Ben Stiller's desk? How does that happen?
I have a production company that I've had for 20 years called Red Hour, and Jackie Cohn, who is our creative executive, read it, and she was like, "This is really good." And,
that's sick. That's awesome.
At the end of the day, you would hope more really good stuff comes in, but it's hard. It's hard because there's not that much great stuff out there unless you're developing something from scratch. But when we read the script, we were like, this is really special. And then we started to develop it with Apple, who at that time wasn't even on, a streamer yet. They were just starting up. So they didn't exist yet. They were just starting to acquire projects. And then we had a long development process with it while I was shooting Escape at Dannemora. And then it's been a long road, but the writing process is involved because I think it's a pretty intricate show, and we're always trying to figure out like how much stuff to put in, what to make sort of, something you can understand, things you will wonder like, well, what does that mean? But that everything has to somehow connect. And that I've found is can be a long and challenging process. But it's
it's a complicated show, man. I mean, because things have to track, right?
And we're not like a very traditional show in the way that we do it. We don't have a writer's room per se. We have everything is per industry guild rules and everything. But it's a different type of setup, and we go back a lot and reshoot sometimes when we see something that might like we go, well, that doesn't quite make sense, or maybe if we did the scene differently. So luckily we're able to do that because, but it's it's
and our family is sort of we get to sometimes be the first eyes on things, David. So
are you serious?
Yeah. We are, for sure. But also the tricky thing about living with someone who's making a show where I don't want the spoiler about what the whole season is. I want to still enjoy it from episode to episode. But when you live with the person and you hear a phone call or you hear because you do a lot of your editing remotely on, from your home office. So I will occasionally hear some spoilers where I don't know exactly what's happening, but I start to piece some things together. And then I'm like, stop, please stop. I don't want to, or he'll leave things in the printer at our house, rewrites and stuff. So anyway.
Or we'll go on location to shoot somewhere and I'll be like, we're going on location to shoot for like 3 weeks. I can't tell you what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, don't tell me anything. It's
really hard because I want to preserve Christine and Quinn and Ella as a focus group that can because we don't have, one of the differences from doing comedies back in the day where we would have a lot of test screenings and focus groups and people watching it as you make the movie before it comes out. This is none of that. So it's just sort of like, can I show it to some people? But you can't show like episode 6 to somebody and say, what do you think if they haven't seen 1 through 5? So Christine, Quinn, and Ella are the group.
And Brian,
my brother-in-law, Christine's brother. And so, we schedule these screenings and, big decisions are made based on that.
I mean, who else is going to tell you the truth besides your family? I mean, that's
exactly. And by the way, they have no problem telling me the truth.
I'm sure.
You asked for it.
Quinn will tell me if he likes something or he doesn't.
I decided if you love somebody, you got to tell them the truth. Right?
Right.
Yes,
right.
Sure.
And then still love them if they don't take your note.
Yeah, well, that's
exactly.
Right. Oh, yeah, they don't take the note. Exactly. Right.
You guys, can we talk about Tropic Thunder real quick? Because I don't think we touched on that. It's one of the funniest comedies and so unique with the action and all that stuff. But how did that script come to you and how did that movie come about?
Well, things do take a long time sometimes in this business. I had the initial idea for the movie in 1987 when I was a small part in Empire of the Sun, Steven Spielberg movie, which was a war movie. And at that time, I was like 22 or whatever, maybe 21, 86, 87. And everybody my age range, and this was, I'm sure you're aware of this because I'm older than you, Dave, but we were going out for Hamburger Hill, Platoon, all of the war movies that were being made. There's a lot of Vietnam.
Full Metal Jacket.
Right.
Yeah, Full Metal Jacket. My friend Vince D'Onofrio from acting class sent in a tape for Full Metal Jacket to audition and ended up, being that guy in Full Metal Jacket. So I had this idea all my friends are going off and doing, war movies. Let's do a thing about actors who are in war movies and go through the boot camp and that whole thing. And I was going to do as a sketch or a short film. And then I never really figured it out. And started talking about it over the years with my friend Justin Thoreau, who was probably like in the early 90s. And he thought it was a great idea. And we started to jam on it. And basically it took until I think like 2000 and something, like 3 or 4 to like get a script from 1987 that we like, and we brought on Etan Cohen to help too. And we finally had a script. We didn't have a third act for a long time. So that was 2003 or 4. Then I didn't make it. And then I was working at DreamWorks, and Steven Spielberg, who directed Empire of the Sun, had given our company a production deal there. And Steven Spielberg and Stacey Snyder, who ran DreamWorks, he read the script and he's like, I think this is funny. You should do it. I'm like, we'll make it. And it was like, wow, okay. And
did you tell him that you conceived the idea while doing?
Sure. Yeah, he was amazing to all the actors when I was on Empire of the Sun. Like, I showed him my first short film I made when I was on that set. I'd done a takeoff on The Color of Money, and I gave him the VHS copy, to check it out. And he watched it and gave me feedback on it. And so, he's always been such a huge mentor to me and someone I looked up to because he's one of my favorite filmmakers. So, the fact that he got behind that movie and then we went off and did it and, at a time when you could do a movie like that. And, as you know, probably that movie would not have gotten out of development today because it's just too out there, too edgy.
But Ben, talk about a little bit of, I think it's worth telling you casting it. And, initially you didn't want to act in it. So.
No, I didn't want to act in it. And I wanted to, at one point, have a real, like a real action star in it. And that was really how the Tom Cruise ended up in the movie. And I had showed it to him, and then he had the idea for the Les Grossman character that he plays in the movie.
You sort of showed it to him with the idea that maybe he would like be intrigued or interested in playing Tug Speedman.
Yes.
But that Joel Silver character was not in the script when you showed it to him?
So this is from 1987 to 2007, I guess, when we shot the movie. That early part of 2007, that character was not in the movie for that whole period of time. And then when Tom saw it and said, you don't have a character like that, you don't make fun of the studio head. You make fun of the actors, you make fun of the agents. And he said, what about the studio head? And he said, because I think I have an idea for a character like that. And Justin and I went back and we're like, well, wait, Tom Cruise wants to be in our movie, so let's definitely figure this out.
Oh my God, dude.
And then it made the movie so much better because Tom Cruise is like an incredible like movie making. I don't want to say like savant, but like because he has many other aspects to it, but like he is just brilliant at story. And there's not, it's not an accident that has the career he's had and the choices he's made and the directors and filmmakers he's worked with. And so he had this thought in his head, like, if you have this character and that's going to affect the story. And we added all of that stuff in the last like 2 months before we shot the movie.
And honestly, it's the biggest departure from someone's image. The work that he had done up until Tropic Thunder, no one would ever think he could deliver that character.
Yeah, but he always has had a good sense of humor and also an ability to, I think, like to really understand what's funny. Even in Jerry Maguire, like there's a lot. He understands.
Okay, but he's still Jerry Maguire there's a lot of Tom Cruise. He's still handsome.
Totally.
I mean,
yes.
Oh no,
yeah.
And he was very clear about the look he wanted. I mean,
yes.
That was all designed by
God,
him.
He's overweight.
He wanted big hands. He has prosthetic hands with hairy knuckles.
Yeah, he's disgusting.
Yeah.
Diet Coke. He wanted to, right?
Yeah, and he said, "I want to dance. I just think I should dance in this way." And then
he's the greatest.
And he figured out this hip hop dance. And I remember it's actually like on the DVD features, we shot a test. And then I put and he started dancing without any music in the test. And then I put some music to it.
That ludicrous song.
The ludicrous song, yeah.
Yes.
And that ended up being like, okay, we have to do that for the end credits. But it was like a good lesson in like how things evolve, and like input from like an actor will come in with an idea. And I think in comedies, you have to be open to that. You have to, and by the way, like you can't say enough about Jack Black and Downey in that movie.
Robert.
Downey, Yeah, the fact that like Downey went for that character, understanding that like, you know, when we cast it, I knew there were like only 2 or 3 actors that could really do that role and have it, you know, work, because it's such a controversial idea. But the idea is, this is an actor. We're making fun of an actor who will do anything to win an award. And it's
Right.
the joke is on the actors. And I think he was tapping into some character that was, I've talked to him a little bit about it, that like, I think influences he had as a kid, but like, he just like was living in that character, and it was like a different person. And, it was so much fun to work with those guys. Everybody sort of so into it. Everybody, McConaughey, everybody was like very committed to just like going for it in the movie. And it was one of the most enjoyable experiences I ever had making a movie.
Yeah. I mean, on the last podcast that we did with you a year ago or a year and a half ago, we talked about how your work it just gets better. It gets better with age. And you watch that movie and you say, there's no way you could make this movie right now. And when Downey is telling you why you didn't win the Oscar,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if I can say it on this podcast.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Right.
I'm scared to even say that now. You put it on film. It's like, but I think comedy is the last place now where performers can still speak the truth. If it's funny, it's funny. And we're making fun of something. We're not stating this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more challenging now because of what, like all the, what the reaction can be out there is it's more intense, but I don't think it should stop people from doing it. And, I think it's just important to kind of do what you think is funny and to go for it. And, it's kind of like, that's just what you have to do. I think you just have to kind of keep on going for it.
Did you guys see the Tom Brady roast?
I saw some clips from it.
I just saw clips. Yeah.
Okay. Because everyone was talking about it so much so that my wife Jill and I watched it, and I was like, okay, I think cancel culture is officially over. Yeah,
it's a hard one because there's no definition of it, right? And like,
it's very subjective.
It's very subjective, and
it's who is worthy of. We're going to handpick who's worthy of being canceled.
And there's no way to handicap that in any way other than, like I said, I think you just have to do. You have to be true to yourself and just do what you think is funny, and just that's it. That's my take on it all.
Your sage wisdom.
By the way, even talking about it is hard because then sound bites get pulled.
Sound bites, exactly.
About, like, this is the point of view, about cancel culture. It's just like
it's happened to you and Robert talking about this movie.
Oh yeah, but to Robert's credit, he's never stopped talking about it the way he talked about it when it first came out.
Yes.
And I feel like that, like, we're totally clear on that. I would, I totally stand behind the movie. I've said that before. I'm so clear on what the movie is and people who've made it. And I think I felt that from, people who watch it and appreciate it. And I think the intention is clear.
Yeah. It's the movie that whenever it's on, we just always stop and watch it. I watch it. Quinn watches it. I'm like, oh, Tropic Thunder. I'll text Ben and to say we ended up watching the last half hour of Tropic Thunder. We love it.
But talk about a challenging directing job, because you were talking about how hard it is to get comedy right, and then you're also making an action movie with major explosions and war scenes.
Yeah, it's the movie folded in on itself a few times when we were making it because it was a big budget movie that did go over budget, and so the movie was about how they were kind of like shutting down the movie.
Life imitating art.
Ben would give Bill Hader, who was playing like one of the studio execs on set, actual lines that he was being told off
from his studio.
His studio. He would say to Bill, you got to use it. I'm sorry, you just got to use it because
so great.
That's what we're making, right?
Yeah. It was, by the end, we were shooting the last act of the movie, the whole big action sequence, and we were like a couple weeks over schedule, and the studio did come out and kind of like have a talk with me about how we had to rein it in. And I was like, okay, this has just gotten very meta. And but the actual, like, I don't know, like it was a really fun shoot. It's funny, like, 'cause I even remember back doing Zoolander in the day was not as fun a shoot for me a lot of times because there was a lot of pressure on the budget and what was going on. And I remember being like, in retrospect, love the movie and there's so many, like fun memories from it too. But Tropic Thunder, I remember just being more like, okay, at the end it got a little bit tight, but it was more than anything, it was just sort of the question when we were making it, it was like, is anybody this is like a big swing, and like, is anybody really gonna get this? Because it wasn't a cheap movie. It was, it was a commitment to an idea and a tone. And it was sort of like, I remember like my agent saying like, yeah, you're working on your little Tropic Thunder experiment.
Yeah.
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
It was a big swing, man, but you hit it out of the park. I mean, God, Jack Black, and even Nick Nolte was so freaking good in it.
Oh, so
Nick
good.
Nolte was,
and Steve Coogan.
Yeah, Coogan.
Everybody is pitch perfect in that.
Yeah.
In that movie.
Yeah.
What else can we touch on, Christine? I feel like I've monopolized the questions. Anything you want to know about your husband?
Yeah, Christine, what kind of questions do you have for me that after 25 years of knowing me that you've always wanted?
Yeah, I have some hard-hitting questions because, word on the street is Happy Gilmore 2 is in the works. And, I think some Happy Gilmore fans want to know is will Hal L be back? I mean,
I haven't talked to Adam about it directly, though. I've heard what you've heard, and I think there's a possibility for sure. I hear it's happening, and we did bring back this Hal L character that I played, was like, who was the orderly that was sort of
mean to the grandma. Remember?
But he in Hubie Halloween, Adam's movie, his Halloween movie from like 4 or 5 years ago. We had the Hal L character in the asylum in the beginning.
He made a little surprise cameo. Yes.
Oh, no way.
I really feel like that's even something that I would love for you to talk a little bit about because, you and Adam, I know you two now as like brothers almost and as close friends who are in so much love and support of each other at this stage in your lives. And I know you guys met in your 20s. Wait, when Happy Gilmore was what, 94? 90?
I don't know, something like that. Yeah.
Early 90s.
I think I met Adam back like in 89. I was directing Colin Quinn, the comedian who's on a show called Remote Control, which was an MTV game show. Back when MTV just started programming stuff, and Remote Control was a hugely popular game show on MTV. And Colin was the sidekick, and he's like funny Brooklyn comedian. He's a genius comedian, and I got hired because I'd done some little things for MTV to direct his special. And Adam would come on Remote Control and do this character Stud Boy.
Yes.
Remember
exactly.
Stud Boy?
Yes. Yes.
He would come on and like he was doing stand up in the clubs, and he was kind of like getting a following, and he was like cool and cute, and he was happening, and he would do Stud Boy and ask a question on Remote Control, and he was popular with the ladies too, and that's when we first met and stayed in touch, but like kind of like we're doing our sort of like separate things. He was doing his movies.
He obviously he asked you to be in Happy Gilmore, which you did
that
hilarious role. He also asked you to be in The Wedding Singer to play the Glenn part, right?
And I stupidly turned that down for some reason, which I don't know why.
Wait, and you guys hadn't met it. You hadn't met at that point.
No, that's why I love these sliding doors stories.
Yeah, you guys could have gotten married a decade earlier.
Yes.
Or it might have never happened. It might have been the moment.
Right. So true.
And then he really wouldn't have wanted me to audition for the Heat Vision Jack. He would have been like, no. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Or
that's how we met.
Let's remind our audience.
Yeah, go ahead.
that you guys met because Ben did not want to cast you in a TV show.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Or wait, this will really blow minds.
I love that story.
Or imagine if Debbie Mazar had done the part and you had done the part,
Well, she told that story on the podcast.
I know, but that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Like, imagine that whole alternate world of who knows,
Isn't
right?
that crazy? That Debbie
crazy?
Mazar and I would have kids and be, yeah.
Right? Crazy.
It is crazy though. Like, if you think about one decision that would make your family not even exist, one little, I didn't go to this event, or I didn't cast Christine, or for me, it was like with Jill, I was supposed to meet her and I didn't want to go meet her. My friend forced me to go meet her, but my family wouldn't exist if I just said, screw it,
By the way, another sliding door at Debbie Mazar is I got 2 callbacks for Goodfellas to play the Kevin Corrigan role.
Exactly.
So maybe I would have met her there and it would have been over. So,
oh my!
But back to the you and Adam thing.
Yeah. So Adam and I were sort of like living our separate lives and kind of doing our thing. And it really wasn't until we did Meyerowitz stories together, I think. Right.
Yes. But can I also just talk about how that came about? Because I remember Ben was being honored getting his hand and footprints at the Man's Chinese Theater.
Oh,
it was a big ceremony and it was this cool thing. And so many, Tom Cruise did an intro for you. It was a lot of people. Judd Apatow was there. And there was a luncheon afterwards, and Adam was shooting something nearby, right in Hollywood. And Judd said, I'm here at Ben's thing. You want to come over? And Adam came over in his shorts and sneakers and, oversized shirt. And you guys had this great moment. And I just remember it was like, it was just like, so you were so happy to see him. And it's just this love fest.
We sort of like connected in a way, we were reconnected in a way, just because we, it's both been doing our things and kind of like had our head down and like doing our own stuff, and then and we used to play basketball sometimes at Gary Shandling's house, which was like a pickup game that he would have there. And like we'd see each other every once in a while, but then that was, probably the first connection. And then Noah Baumbach came up with the idea to do a movie with us playing brothers. And we just had such a great experience on that movie. And ever since have just been really close. And, he's just like one of the most generous, loving people, great dad. Our kids know each other now.
David, Ben and Quinn and Adam all have a text thread where they were just constant texts about the Knicks and in real time. And Quinn is just like so excited to be in this group chat.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, Adam's a big
huge Knicks
fan.
Knicks
fan.
But Adam just like exudes, love and warmth and loyalty to friends. And it was interesting. Like I went to his Kennedy Center, honors, a Mark Twain Prize that he got a couple of years ago. And it was just such a great gathering, all the people in his life. And, I think everybody who he's touched are so grateful because it's so genuine and it's like a wide reach, over the years. And, his amazing career, which I've always admired, how he just has never cared about what anyone else thinks. Talking about not caring, like when you just do your thing. It's like, no, I'm going to do this for my fans, for me. And that has, paid off with this like just incredible loyalty of his fan base because people really just appreciate that he's there for them. And I see it, he's one of those people where you see him out on the street, whenever, anybody connects with him, he's just so who he is.
Ben, we would always go to Boca Raton with my kids and their cousins. My in-laws live there. And we would always spend time at the Boca Beach Club. And Adam Sandler would be there in the hot tub with 15 kids surrounding him. And he's just he's like cracking jokes and it seems like he never changed or got affected. He's just such a friendly, sweet guy.
Yes. And he's just so like genuine. And he also, loves doing what he does and is very in the best way, like insecure, like all of us, like he's just like trying, he puts himself out there, his work with Paul Thomas Anderson, it's like, he really, takes chances, but then he also, he'll go do the Paul Thomas Anderson movie and then go do Hubie Halloween or, like, it's like nobody else does that or really, can do that.
And he'll also produce his friend. He'll say, David Spade, let's do your movie. Rob Schneider, let's do your movie.
Exactly.
I was going to say his loyalty to his friends. And I think I see that I see you very similar in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Adam, like just being at that Kennedy Center thing, like seeing the wide breadth of his friends, across the spectrum, people with totally different crazy political views on either side, all of it doesn't matter because
He
these
loves who he
people,
loves. Yeah.
like the comedy, the humor, like people were hanging out after that thing together at the hotel bar, just, Dana Carvey, Kevin Nealon, Chris Rock, like these people who just, have such a respect for Adam and also just like a shared history over the years that's very special, So I love him and, he's one of a kind.
Yeah.
Well,
I love that friendship.
You are too, buddy.
You are. You are.
It's a lot of goodwill and a lot of good friendships built up, and to me, that is the mark of success. Is like, what does your family think of you? What do your good friends think of you? How have you treated people? There's nothing else.
And the evolution and this, getting back to what you're talking about family and like, career and all that, like the evolution of as we grow as people, hopefully like getting closer to, the core essence of who you are and what's important. And that's why I feel so lucky that like with Christine and I and our family, our kids, like to really appreciate that, because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, at this point in life, the experiences are the most important thing. That's all you have, right? You have the moment and what we're in and our relationships and the people we love. And, so I feel really like I feel really grateful for that. And like, kind of like, just, that's the thing that, I value the most. I still like, will like think about like, oh, what do I want to be doing creatively? Cause it's really important. But at the end of the day, to want to hang out with your family and just be there with them and enjoy each other, that's the best.
Yeah. Well, you get back from those people what you put into them, right? So you've nurtured your kids, your wife,
and then also, like, isn't it great at this point when your kids are getting older, where you see them as human beings who just are totally unique individuals that are like, wait a minute, who are you?
Where'd you come from? I know.
We were hanging out in the hotel with Ella last week, and it's like she is just like one of the funniest, weirdest people I've ever met. And same thing with Quinn. Like Quinn is just like his own sense of humor, and you can just enjoy them as as people that you have nothing to do with other than having been their parents. But like
they're so different from us, and that's like the breath of fresh air of it, which I think is you don't want the little mini me's. It's like they have their own thoughts,
and that happens, David, as they get older. Like for us having like older kids, like you really start to. It's like
David has older kids too.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, he's got Casey, who's a year older than Quinn.
21, 18, and 14. But like, the fact that our kids still want to hang out with us means so much to me. Casey asked me to go to lunch a couple days ago, and when Hannah's home, she'll be like, "Can we play tennis?" And I almost like start crying.
How great is that?
This is so cool.
I know. Ben, this is my week with Quinn, and you have this whole week with Ella. You're doing a whole bunch of things with Ella.
I'm going to the theater with Ella tonight, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
And tomorrow night too, we're doing 2 nights in a row. And
I love it.
Yeah, you're right. It's great.
All right. Well, we're going to let you go back to editing.
Okay. You sure? Anything else you need on here? I had my list of all the people that I loved listening to on the show.
Tell us, who did you love?
I mean, I was just going through them. There's so many, but like the Patton and Oswald was great.
Yes. Meredith, yes, that was so fun.
Because he talked about something that was I thought meant so much, which was he was talking about how the digital age is sort of like literally erasing content because there's no hard copies of things anymore. And he talked about very, articulately about how now if you do something and it's not streaming, there can literally be no record of it, which is just insane. That was amazing, when he talked about that. Like you know what I mean? If you make something where there's no DVD now.
Yeah, you're right.
Necessarily, there's no movie poster.
There must be a master copy of the
somewhere
film, right?
on a
but
chip.
Who has it? But
where is it? Like a digital file? Because movies are now like stored on digital files. It's crazy to just think that there's not like. If something gets pulled from a streamer, there's no way to see something now.
They don't still make a DCP master.
Yeah. DCP that can like literally exist on like a thumb drive, or on a drive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But he's really more talking about like, okay, even if that exists, if there's nowhere to access it, you can't go to the DVD store or the video store and buy it. Some of these movies don't even get posters printed because they're not in theaters. There's no like physical representation
you're
anymore, which is crazy. Anyway, and the Mark Summers episode was great. We saw Mark Summers' show, which was amazing.
We did. David, yes. We went to see I think the night or two before it closed, his one-man show, which was so good.
It was so entertaining and so moving too. And he was great. Richard and Daisy Marks, Edwin McCain show.
Yeah.
That was great. He talked about the Hootie and the Blowfish connection and all that. It was great.
Look at you. You obviously went through the library.
I went through the library. Kel Mitchell I enjoyed. Carson Daly's story. Rob Morrow was great talking about working with Robert Redford and that whole experience.
Amazing. Yeah.
Elizabeth Berkley's episode where she talked about doing Showgirls. Great.
Did you hear the Nelson brothers?
The Nelson Brothers was one of my favorite episodes, too.
Me too.
Same.
Dude, I could not believe who I was talking to. I didn't know their grandparents were Ozzie and Harriet. I knew their dad was Ricky Nelson, but like when he talks about George Harrison coming over for breakfast every morning and Bob Dylan being crashed out on their living room couch and their family's in the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Well, the insane childhood that they had, and then the way that they have evolved, with their music and like really having a real connection with, like who they are in that, like an appreciation of where they come from, but also like moving forward and also an appreciation of the fans who are connected to them. I thought they were really eloquent.
I love when they talked about that they were the nerds at heart. And they're like, that's who our music is for. It was not the cool people. We didn't think we were cool. We happened to have long blonde hair, but we were not a hair band. I loved them. I loved them.
They were great.
They were great. And Adam Duritz was a great episode too, where you got into all that. Because I felt the same way you did about that. Those Counting Crows records were so formative for me too at a time, when I had moved out to LA and was just starting out. And I thought he was so open and, just really giving in terms of like what he talked about his process. And, some of these people, like you said, even with Gavin Rossdale, like people you might think like, oh, these are like cool rock stars who just like open up and talk to you guys in such a real way. Very relatable. Yeah.
That's like Ben Stiller too. A lot of people think about Ben Stiller that way too.
Sure. You know the truth.
Look.
The truth.
We got to see inside your heart and soul.
This is a great podcast. I hope it goes on forever because it's really enjoyable.
Thanks, honey.
And people
Thank you, guys. Well, we enjoy it. Thank you so much, Ben. You're awesome.
This is so good. Thank you, honey.
Bye, honey.
Love you.
Love you.
I'll talk to you later. Okay.
Bye.
Our first part 2.
Right. But it was worthwhile because, we could have talked another hour. Like,
I know.
So much stuff.
It was so sweet that you started by talking about Ann and Jerry. That was such a great way to just, talk about the beginning of it all and his amazing parents and in honor of them.
You know what's cool about a part 2 is that, part 1, we really have to focus on the 90s.
Yeah.
And we really went there with Ben a year ago, Reality Bites and Flirting with Disaster and all, But so this one was like, we were free to just riff and like we were at dinner, whatever, just chill.
Totally. That's what I said to Ben. Don't focus on 90s. I did want to I re-listened too, because I didn't want us to repeat anything.
Exactly.
And it was a year and a half ago. And, there were things that I was like, oh, we did talk about that. But no, I was so glad. He was so happy to get invited back. It's like, Ben, it was an open invitation.
I can't believe he listens every week.
Every Monday.
It's so cool. We should have a Ben Stiller episode every 6 months to a year. You know what else? I in my notes, what I wanted to ask him about was the films that shaped his sensibility. Because I know he's a film buff, and you guys show your kids film.
Yeah, he's definitely I love the word cinephile. He's definitely a cinephile. He loves movies, like he talked about a little bit. But
right. And I'd want to know who are his favorite directors? What are his favorite films? That's what I would have. But we'll save that for
part 3. Part 3. Every year.
That was awesome.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and come back next week for another one.
Yep. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to subscribe and give us 5 stars.
And please follow us on Instagram at HeyDudeThe90s Called. See you next time.